Hi everybody, thanks for coming back and joining me yet again for another video. They are coming through thick and fast. So for those of you that are new, this is the first time you're watching me, please remember that if you like the content to hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you will always be prompted when I release another video. Subscribing is free, you do not get charged for it. So hit those buttons and let's get on with the video. So I'm going to start with some of the more serious stuff because Harry has kicked a hornet's nest when it comes to his time in Afghanistan. As many of us have seen across media in the USA, in the UK, across the world, it's not really the done thing for soldiers to give their kill count, especially when comparing it to a chessboard and goodies and baddies. It has caused a bit of a backlash. Whilst the Taliban, who now obviously have full control of Afghanistan, they are in charge, initially laughed at it and made jokes about how the cowardly prince ran back to his grandmother's palace rather than face them in war. Obviously, this has now taken more of a nastier and a lot darker turn, which is to be expected given the nature of Harry's claims. And unfortunately, you have now got the hate preachers that are inciting for harm to happen and to take revenge on British troops. Now, Ben Farthing, he was in the newspapers for trying to evacuate as many animals from Kabul, obviously, when the takeover happened. He has also appeared in the newspaper saying that he actually had to leave Kabul, leave his staff yet again, due to security risk, increased risk, once this book on, obviously, that segment of the book was published in the worldwide media. There's now been calls to increase security for the Invictus Games, which is happening later this year. Harry has, in fact, by doing this, not just endangered his life, or rather put a target on his back. When you think of the royal family, they are heavily protected. But with the hate preachers that are now trying to encourage lone attacks, everyone can remember the tragedy that happened to Lee Rigby. This was done by lone wolves, and it was encouraged by the same people which are now encouraging more revenge attacks. It's the members of the public and the soldiers and people living out in Kabul that are still out there, which are now at a more of an increased risk due to Harry's stupid comments. Now, obviously, the woke liberal media, the people that will defend them, even if Harry was caught drowning a puppy, have been out in full force saying it's down to context. If you actually read the paragraphs properly, it doesn't matter. Harry is still bragging about taking people's lives, talking about taking people's lives like they are little more than a computer game. And the problem with that is the same people, where were they talking about context when the conversation or conversations, depending on whether you believe Harry's version of events on Oprah or Meghan's, the context of the conversation about Archie's skin colour. Harry turned around and said on Oprah that it was a conversation he had before he married Meghan. Do the math. Meghan wasn't even pregnant. Meghan said it was multiple conversations that happened around about the same time that they were talking about Archie would not have security, all to do with the fact of how brown he may come out, if you remember Oprah. What? Yes, exactly. What indeed? So where were these people kicking off for context then? What about when Catherine and William did their tour in the Caribbean and, more importantly, Jamaica, when it all kicked off? Certain media outlets and certain media personalities deliberately cropped images of Catherine and William that were saying hello to children and people through fences. The fences did only come to here. The actual full photograph showed them leaning over the fences and shaking hands. But no, the people that wanted to do the racism and slavery and colonialism narrative, they deliberately cropped the pictures and then pushed it that Catherine and William were talking to children through fences. Again, context. Also, another thing that has come out to do with Harry's time in the army is the fact that he was allowed to escape a drugs test. When drugs tests happen in the army, they do not obviously tell them when they are coming. Harry was on an RAF base, which has then put further fuel on the fire of Harry's long-term drug abuse. Whilst it was common knowledge that Harry had taken drugs when he was a teenager and he'd sought help for it, this was when Harry was training to be an Apache pilot on an RAF base, when apparently Harry was allowed to leave, given special privileges that no one is allowed, to leave the premises whilst a lockdown was going on. Now, why would Harry rush back for important palace duties and was seen speeding away in his Audi A3? I mean, these minor details, why do we need to know what car he was driving? Why would he run away from a drugs test unless there was something potentially wrong with the test results that he may have received? Also, again, throwing under the bus anyone that allowed him to leave the barracks, and then the fact that he was allowed back into the barracks after the drug testers had presumably left. Now, speaking of Harry's training to become a pilot, it was common knowledge, and this was released by an MP in Parliament, to disclose the fact that Harry failed his pilot's exams several times. Harry was, in fact, not a pilot. Now, I always believed that Harry was a gunner in the second seat, so I still believed that he had gone up. Well, he might have done in training, but it seems that he didn't go up in the case of actually fighting. But I have since read from other military personnel in the know that you cannot be a gunner if you have failed your pilot's exams. Front seats operate the weapons and also flies the aircraft, but both seats can only be used by qualified pilots. So it makes you wonder about Harry's kill count. Was this his kill count playing Call of Duty, or is this an experience that he's been told by colleagues or people that he's met throughout the years that he has plagiarized? Because Meghan and Harry do tend to plagiarize other people's experiences and then peddle them as their own. Now, revisiting Harry the Stallion story, but it's more Harry and My Little Pony, the story of how Harry lost his virginity has also caused a bit of a hoo-ha because, well, I can't say I'm surprised at this, but people are starting a witch hunt on who the woman could be that stole Harry's virginity behind the back of a busy pub. So this has caused Elizabeth Hurley to speak up because she lived near where he lost his virginity, and she was actually embarrassingly a friend of King Charles, or they're at least friendly terms with each other, and she's had to say it wasn't me. But because this hunt is now on to find the woman who stole his virginity, there is another person's privacy that Harry has breached. She has obviously kept her mouth closed all of these years, whether she had to legally do it through an NDA, but given the nature of the story of how it happened, I highly doubt it. So she's respected his privacy all of these years when she could have done a kiss and tell. And now, years later, she could be married with children. This story could come out and completely humiliate and embarrass her and her husband and her family. What makes it worse is Harry in the story, the narrative he's going with, is how it was a humiliating experience. And the way he tells it was almost like he was violated. He's implying that he's a victim that was taken advantage of by an older woman. How horrible for that poor woman when it gets found out who she actually is, or at least speculated as to who it may have been. Now, out of the multiple things that Harry has done talking about invading other people's privacy, he has brought up his brief courtship with Caroline Flack. Many of you that know Caroline Flack sadly took her life in 2020. This is obviously still something that is incredibly upsetting for Caroline's family and her friends and anyone that ever knew, loved and worked with Caroline. Harry talks about their courtship and he brings up the fact that the newspapers and the media called her his bit of rough because she worked in a factory or something, he says. So he's talking about her like she was just a notch on his bedpost, but how absolutely disgraceful. Harry's obviously using the story because he's trying to say that she took her own life due to the media hounding her. Obviously, something like that happens, you don't really know the ins and outs of it, but Harry is using Caroline's absolutely tragic story to manipulate people, the readers, and to help push this narrative of the evil media. Her former publicist has come forward and said that it's absolutely disrespectful and grotesque, and I actually agree with this. Now, we've had more unsettling reveals from Harry to do with Meghan's connection to his mother Diana. This one is as unnerving as the hair by the nightstand, okay? He speaks of taking the love of his life to meet his mother, bearing in mind he is referring to his mother who died 20 odd years ago. They rowed a boat to the very private island, Lake Memorial, on the Spencer estate. As you can see, this is a very, very private and personal place on the Spencer estate who have buried Diana. It gives her absolute privacy that she very, very seldom had, even in after her death. But Harry talks how he left a bunch of flowers at his mother's grave and Meghan wanted her own moment, so he left her at the memorial. When Harry returned, he found Meghan to be emotional on her knees with her hands on his mother's tombstone, saying that she was asking Diana for clarity and for guidance. Red flag. That is a major manipulation red flag, and it is creepy as hell. From communing with Diana's spirit, leaving pregnancy test on Diana's box of hair, wearing perfume like Diana's on their first dates, dressing and posing like Diana, touching him like a mother would a child. The behavior was created by her to control and to manipulate him. On Oprah, they spoke about her suicidal episode, and he said that she woke him up. She told him that she was going to kill herself and their unborn child, and exactly how she was going to do it. But then she said she wouldn't actually do it because she knows he's already lost one woman that he loves in his life. I am not making this up. This is their words on the Oprah interview. Meghan has manipulated Harry by mirroring his mother, by convincing him that she is able to communicate with her spirit. The fact that she is his wife, this is the woman that he has sex with. And as we've seen with Harry, with interviews and other snippets and bits, reveals, Harry speaks about Meghan like she is his mother reincarnated, that she is so much like his mother, that he was so desperate to tell Diana's sisters, and Uncle Charles Spencer, that she was so much like Diana. He was obsessed with pushing this narrative that she is like his mother. At the end of the day, Meghan is his wife, and he is that obsessed with she is the reincarnation of his mother. This is the woman that he sleeps with. This is taking levels of unhinged, unhealthy. Obviously, I am not a qualified psychiatrist, but I am reading this from people that are qualified, and it is incredibly unnerving. As I said in a previous video, this would explain the unhealthy obsession and possession that he has since developed, and it seems to be getting stronger over his mother's memories. Now, Harry talks of lots more fights that he had with William. Now, one actually came down to Harry's therapy. William became so concerned that Harry was being brainwashed, he actually asked to attend therapy sessions with him. That is a concerned brother. Again, Harry, with all of the stories that come out where he paints William as the psychopath, it actually turns out when you read it, William was doing absolutely anything and everything in his power to help his brother, and he's made it very clear that he loves him very, very much. One particular argument, I will go into more detail and read you an excerpt of it. Now, this story goes back to after Prince Philip's funeral, Harry met with William and Charles in the gardens, and he said that they were gunning for a fight. William was apparently steaming, and he shouted at him, "You never came to us." This is William screaming at Harry. "You never came to us. You never came to me." Harry says, "I waved a hand, disgusted. He grabbed my shirt. 'Listen to me, Harold.' I pulled away. I refused to meet his gaze. He forced me to look into his eyes. 'Listen to me, Harold. Listen. I love you, Harold. I want you to be happy.' Harry fired back, 'I love you too, but your stubbornness is extraordinary.' I'm thinking to myself, hang on a minute, your brother is literally begging you to listen to him, trying to make eye contact with you, and you're palming it off with a hand in the face. He's literally grabbing hold of him, trying to get him to look him in the eyes, to show him real emotion. So it's not just empty words, to show him how much he means when he is telling him that he loves him and he's trying to help. And Harry's just dismissing him and being angry about it years later, that his brother was trying to show him that he was loved and he was just looking out for him. Now, William was reported to have grabbed him a third and final time, and he was begging him to listen, told him that he loved him and he wanted him to be happy. And he said, I swear on Mummy's life." Harry says, "I stopped. Pa stopped. He'd done it. He'd gone there. He used the secret code. Ever since we were boys, those 3 words were only used in times of extreme crisis." Yes, but Harry, you still didn't listen. You are telling the world that your brother used the absolute trump card, the final card that he had emotionally, bearing his soul to him, to say, "Listen to me, please." And Harry's got the cheek to turn around and say that his family never cared for him. They weren't bothered in trying to help him. I just don't understand it. And the fact that he's revealed, again, such a deeply personal, emotional thing between brothers that goes back to their mother, who Harry obviously, holds above all else. It's truly shocking. We talk about it like reality TV, but in truth, the Kardashians wouldn't even go this low to each other. In fact, they are making the Kardashians look like a normal, healthy family. And let's just say Kim Kardashian has revealed everything, her innermost soul, if you know what I mean. And they would never go as low as what Harry is doing. And it's just truly astounding, and it's actually heartbreaking to watch. I believe that Harry is in the middle of a breakdown. And whilst I laugh at some of it, some of this stuff, like I said, is incredibly serious. The emotion that he is just absolutely disregarding from anyone that's truly loved him, yet he's hanging off the words of someone. Since she's been in his life has been destroyed. Harry doesn't seem to grasp that in this book, he is confirming Megxit, South Africa, running away to Canada, that he never told his family anything. He never told them. The fact that he starts off that whole argument with William saying, you didn't come to me for help, you didn't tell me, tells the world that Harry was in fact lying again, that he did not in fact tell his family anything, and he's confirming it in his own words. Much like this entire 6-hour Netflix documentary plus this book, every story that Harry and Meghan have slagged off the media for making up about them, they've confirmed that it was true, that it did happen. It's absolutely crazy. Now, one last serious story that's come out, and then I'm going to lighten up the mood a little bit because I'm feeling a little bit depressed talking about this, is Meghan's story of her miscarriage. Trigger warning to anyone. I know so many people, so many women have been through this, and, you know, obviously fathers experiencing their loved ones going through it as well. But this is where it takes on a turn, and you think there is a reason why there's so many conspiracy stories out there. Harry said in the Netflix documentary, I believe my wife suffered a miscarriage because of what the Mail did, referring to, obviously, the court case that Meghan brought, the Dear Daddy letter. Harry goes on to say, now, do we absolutely know that the miscarriage was caused by that? Of course we don't. But bearing in mind the stress that it caused, the lack of sleep, the timing of the pregnancy, and how many weeks, I highlight weeks, in she was, I can say that the miscarriage was created by what they were trying to do to her. I am not doubting the emotion behind it, but they have made this story so unbelievable now that lots of people are beginning to question the entire story and the timelines. So this is now into the book. We left hospital with our unborn child, a tiny package. We went to our secret place, only we know, under a spreaded banyan tree. While Meghan wept, I dug a hole with my hands and set the tiny package softly in the ground. Now, this is obviously, it's heart-wrenching stuff, but it sounds like someone else's story, doesn't it? Because I'm not being funny. You don't leave hospital with a package when you've had a miscarriage barely weeks into your pregnancy. When you are weeks pregnant, there is nothing to bury. Plus the fact it's completely illegal under Californian law to bury a body, to bury any sort of human remains. So the hospital would have known this. And it, as I said, the timeline, the fact she was merely weeks pregnant, it really, really doesn't make sense. So it's making people now question, well, if that is completely made up, or if that is someone else's storyline, then how true is the story overall? Now, in some more revelations, and we're going to start to lift the mood and get a little bit more lighthearted. Let's talk about Meghan's 2 birthing stories, okay? First of all, we've got one storyline that shows Harry to be a completely selfish and awful husband yet again. He signed the divorce papers himself at this point. When Meghan was in labour with Archie, she was apparently bouncing up and down on a big purple ball. Harry took the canister, which was left unattended at the side of Meghan's bed, of, you know, the laughing gas, which they give women in labour, and he took a couple of tugs on it. Meghan reportedly rolled her eyes, and Harry decided to take a few more. In fact, his words were, I took several slow penetrating hits, then I took several more, and I was bouncing too. Meghan then went and got into a bath and listened to soulful hymns, as of course she did, while Harry illuminated the room with electric candles and placed a photograph of Diana, obviously incredibly hygienic photograph of Diana, in the delivery room. So obviously, so Diana could be there to experience the birth of Archie. Honestly, I just don't understand how Meghan would even want this stuff in the book unless there is ulterior motives, which I will come to later. So Harry has got high on all of the laughing gas. He brags that he did the entire canister. And when the nurse came in to give some to Meghan, she realised that the canister was empty and looked at him. Harry apparently looked sheepishly and said, "I'm sorry." Husband of the Year award. So your wife is in labour, in pain, and you decide to take the only pain relief that she had. Again, the canister being left there, Harry consuming it. It's just the stories, again, just it all seems rather odd and just doesn't really seem to add up to me. Then we have Lilibet's birth. Oh yes, baby Lily. Now this one, Harry apparently delivered her, not by himself, thankfully, but he delivered her so she would see his face first when she was brought into the world. So there you go, have that image of Harry with his head between Meghan's legs as she's giving birth and the poor midwife and doctors just on standby. Don't worry, he's a trained army veteran. I'm sure he knows what he's doing. Now, this is where it gets even stranger. And again, this is bringing people to question the validity of their stories. Bearing in mind, Meghan was 40 years old, just under, like a couple of months under, when she gave birth to Lilibet. She had recently had a miscarriage. They had spoken about how when Archie was born, they did have a moment of terror where the umbilical cord was tangled up. Now, Meghan, as I said, she is a geriatric mother. Her pregnancies come at high risk. But they go on to say that when they arrived at hospital, Harry was given a meal from In-N-Out. Yes, I swear they've got some sort of sponsorship deal with that burger company. And Meghan was given a meal of fajitas when she arrived at the hospital, the expectant mother, as Harry points out. Now, obviously, I've said before, I own it. I have not given birth. I have not experienced it. A lot of my friends have, but I decided to put this out to Twitter to ask people, women, mothers, midwives, doctors, anyone that had any medical knowledge. And I had over 1,000 responses very, very quickly from women that have gone through it and obviously trained medical professionals as well. And they have all said you are not given a meal when you are in labour. You might have been given something small when your labour first initially started up if you were hours and hours away from it. But given the fact, like I said, all of the things with Meghan, a geriatric pregnancy, she would have only been given ice chips and water. This is because in case she needed medical intervention, if something had gone wrong, she needed a C-section or any sort of drug, because when you have a belly full of food, you are at risk of vomiting and choking. And this is actually quite the norm when I've even gone in and had medical procedures done myself. You're not allowed to eat, sometimes 24 hours beforehand. So again, it brings lots of questions forward going, that doesn't seem to add up. And people are saying, well, perhaps Meghan, being the expectant mother, was allowed to eat a meal of fajitas. And Harry says that Meghan and Harry did a little dance after each meal, as you do when you're in labour. It might mean that perhaps someone else was in labour. Now, as for Harry delivering Lilibet, I think that's possibly been over-exaggerated. Lots of men and women are there to cut the umbilical cord of their children when they are born into the world. However, as I said, Harry being allowed to deliver his daughter, I'm going to take that one with a pinch of salt. It's not quite on the total bollocks pile, but I have got some stories coming up that well and truly are. So let's go for bollocks story number 1. Did you know that Harry was not actually best man at Prince William's wedding? Yes, the hugely televised events that we've all watched, the world has seen, the magazines, the coverage, the YouTube videos that are out there. William had in fact chosen 2 of his friends who gave a speech who were not actually there during the ceremony. They were apparently the true best men. So Harry is showing a weird, unnerving element of jealousy here. He was there for the ceremony. He was there with his brother the night before. He was the ring bearer. He was there throughout the entire ceremony. He was there on the balcony. And Harry is saying because he didn't give the best man speech and 2 of Prince William's friends did in the evening function, he was actually not the best man after all. It was completely a fake narrative. How can he even say this? It's just completely bizarre. But what is even more questionable is the fact that when they got married, stories came out about Prince Harry's speech and how Chelsea Davy actually helped Harry with his best man speech. And he was asked to cut out several bits where he was talking about Catherine's killer legs. So does no one find it strange that there was newspaper stories that came out from the event at the time that he did in fact give a speech? And now it turns out he wasn't giving a speech and he wasn't even best man at all. In another story that's not going to do Harry the soldier, the war army veteran, tough boy image any good, he was scared of Angela Kelly. Yeah, we go to Tiara Gate. Harry has left out quite a little bit of exactly why Meghan chose the tiara that she did. But he's also put in more information that, guess what, we have never heard before. So, Meghan was originally going to wear the Spencer tiara. Yes, the Spencer tiara was the reason why Meghan spent hours working on her veil. Yes, not the designers or the actual people that were making it. No, the seamstresses that are perfectly capable of doing it. Meghan had to spend hours with them making sure that the scalloped edges of her veil matched the Spencer tiara. But the Queen came forward and she said, I don't want you to wear the Spencer tiara. I want you to wear one of my many priceless tiaras, but not that one. No, you can look at that one, but Eugenie's got that one, so you can't wear that one. Well, why am I allowed to look at that one? Again, the whole story surrounding this is just, I can't wait for Angela Kelly's book, and I hope that she discloses what truly happened. Now, the Queen also reportedly told Meghan that she could take the tiara so she could go practice with her hairdresser before the main event. Yeah, she can do her practice test hair runs with a priceless piece of royal jewellery. Angela Kelly was obviously not so keen, and she stared at Harry and he felt unnerved and chilled to the core. Yes, Harry has turned into quite the wuss since he's met Meghan, hasn't he? At the end of the day, I don't believe that story that the Queen would ever allow Meghan to use a tiara, to take it off randomly without police protection, because any jewels are literally, you have to have a police officer, armed police officer, escort them. You know, they have to be signed out with a vault and everything. But Meghan's trying to say that the Queen allowed her to take a tiara to go have practice dress runs, and Angela Kelly turned around and said no. Well, good for Angela Kelly, because it would seem that she was the only one there with sense in that conversation. But again, I'm putting it in the utter bollocks pile, because I do not believe that the Queen would ever have said such a thing. In more bollocks news that has come out, Prince Charles was reportedly jealous of resplendent, I quote with bunny ears, resplendent Meghan Markle. Yes, apparently Charles was so jealous, as was Camilla, over and worried about his daughter-in-law taking away the limelight, has no issues with his other daughter-in-law looking like a goddess, and seems perfectly happy with that family dynamic. But of course it comes back round to there was just jealousy around the starlet, the A-list resplendent Hollywood star that Meghan was. Everyone was terrified of her stealing their limelight. Despite all of the millions that Charles absolutely showered Meghan in, despite all the love that he publicly showed her, walking her up the aisle when her own father pulled out or was cancelled. Who knows really the true storyline of that one as well, but needless to say, I'm putting that one firmly in the bollocks pile. Along with Prince Charles did not support William and Harry out of kindness. No, he did it because it was his job. And I quote, "We agreed to serve the monarch, go wherever we were sent, do whatever we were told, surrender our autonomy, keep our hands and feet inside the gilded cage at all times. And in exchange, the keepers of the cage agreed to feed and clothe us." Did anyone hear the genie there? Keep your hands and arms inside the carpet. This is absolutely bizarre, the way he is referring to feed and clothe us. What is this, the little matchstick prince story? I mean, the slavery. Oh gosh, he was practically forced into servitude. Crust of bread, glass of water, that's all you have, and off to bed in the dungeons. When Charles asked Harry what Meghan's intentions were, you know, whether she intended to keep working, Harry had turned and said, no, she's going to come live here, you know, rent-free with me. And Charles reportedly turned around and said to Harry, he warned him that his family was not made of money. But Harry felt it had nothing to do with economics and everything to do with jealousy. Now, this will make you laugh. This was Harry's counter-argument. He said, I felt like saying this, but thankfully he didn't say it, although maybe he should have done, and then Charles would have woken up a long time ago. The cost of providing for Meghan with food and shelter, yes, his words, food and shelter, were minimal, given that she did not have a large appetite and she could make her own clothes. Yes, this is Meghan. This is our down-to-earth Meghan who could make her own clothes. Like Cinderella, was she singing to the animals and getting the birds to come down to help make her £56,000 engagement dress? Did she sing to the deers and the bunny rabbits in the woods to help come design her £100,000 maternity dress, 98k? Perhaps it was the animals that forced Meghan and Harry to have their extravagant, ostentatious wedding, because Harry tries to sell the narrative that they just wanted to run away to elope to Botswana and get married barefoot, but they were told that they weren't allowed to. Yes, their £32 million wedding plus all of the extras was apparently ordered, the spectacle for the world, by the palace. Again, which pile are we putting this one into, people? Yes, you are correct. In more stories of their extreme poverty, their servitude, bearing in mind that Meghan could make her own clothes and Harry was barely given shelter, food and water for serving the monarchy, right? He goes on to talk about the jealousy, well, he's finally honest about something here, that Meghan and Harry had when they went to Catherine and William's Kensington apartment and they saw the luxurious furniture that they had, and they were jealous because they, in their tiny little hovel, which is Nottingham Cottage, were forced to shop in IKEA. They had IKEA lamps and a second-hand sofa. But the way they talk about Nottingham Cottage, this is a 1,324 square foot property. That's 123 metres squared, okay? Nottingham Cottage is 3 times the size of the house that I live in and most normal people live in. They were living there for free. And they talk about how they were forced to shop at IKEA and have a second-hand sofa. This is the same couple that spent £2.4 million on refurbishing and furnishing Frogmore Cottage. Do you think that Meghan would have really been shopping at IKEA? Now, I am not slagging off IKEA here. I've been to IKEA. IKEA does have some bargain stuff, but it also has some very expensive stuff as well. And talk about the level of entitlement. They are living in the grounds for free, a house for free, 3 times the size. They are living on millions of pounds worth of Charles's money that was given to them as an allowance for doing absolutely sod all, right? And here they are talking about like they were living in rat-infested, leaking dungeon. It's truly outstanding that Harry cannot see why people are really not going to take to his victim narrative too well. Harry tried to back up how small this house was as well by saying when Oprah visited, she was so shocked at the tiny dwellings that no one in the world would believe it. Oh, let me get my violins out. They had to shop in IKEA. They had a second-hand sofa. Please pull the other one. I mean, how absolutely ungrateful. I have never, ever come across a more out-of-touch, ungrateful pair of people in my entire life. Harry complaining that Charles refused to continue to pay his allowance as well when they settled in America. Yes, he talks about in the book that Charles refused to continue to pay for them, even though they'd left, had multi-million-pound contracts with Spotify, Netflix, 6-figure salaries from Silicon Valley companies, which they've bragged about, but they still demanded that Charles paid them an allowance. You can tell that Harry's venom drips through the pages again because he said the fact that his dad was earning millions from the tremendously lucrative Duchy of Cornwall. It's like, Harry, you had 30 million from when your mother died and your the Queen mother died, right? 30 million in a bank. You imagine with all of the royal lawyers and specialist investments, Harry was an incredibly rich man in his own right. Plus, he never had to pay for anything and had daddy's allowance. They had millions of pounds in the bank when they went there. They were living in a 16-bathroom mansion in the middle of one of the most expensive areas in America. And he's still bitching that daddy cut off his allowance. It's truly disgraceful. Harry does not live in the real world. He has gone so far down the rabbit hole that he could get therapy right now from a blue caterpillar smoking something or the Cheshire cat and he wouldn't notice. He is detached from reality, from the real world, from how normal people live. The fact that he's trying to get a victim story across by these stories that he's revealing, it's just truly mind-blowing. Now, I spoke about briefly in the beginning that Harry has done an own goal by talking about his drug abuse, and he was talking about the fact that he was doing it when he was training to be an Apache helicopter pilot. But I actually believe that this has gone a lot further than just when he was younger, because he was talking about taking cocaine and mushrooms, but it's the way he said it. He said, they helped me to see the truth. That to me is not someone that is referring back to their teenage years. They smoked a bit of pot, they did a bit of drugs at college. You know, you grow up, you forget that. It's the way that he's now referring to it currently as it helped him see the truth. That to me makes me think that Harry has done a lot of drugs. And who knows, some people have said on social media, perhaps he's still microdoses. If this is what he believes, if he believes psychedelic drugs help him see the truth, then there is a good chance that he is still some way or in some form taking them. This has obviously led to a lot of concerned people saying, one, obviously he's very unwell, he needs to seek professional help. And the other concerns is more from actual immigration lawyers that are saying, this drug abuse that he's confessing to, he would have had to put that on his visa application to be in the United States. If he has not put that on his visa application in the United States, which they have also said would have been declined, if he was Joe Bloggs and he admitted all of this drug abuse, which obviously Harry has had medical treatment for as well, then they are saying that his visa, he wouldn't have got it. So the fact that Harry has got it, this is now leading to people to call for investigations into it, which could mean that Harry could end up having his visa revoked. Bearing in mind, this is his own words, his own confessions, that he has been a long-term drug and alcohol abuser. This is a big no-no on a US visa. Now, this is where I will take you back to the beginning of the video where I said that perhaps Meghan does have ulterior motives, because I'm sorry, any loving wife would never allow their partner to disclose this much information on a public platform that is going to be harmful for her, for their children. So it makes you think, why is she allowing him to self-destruct on such a worldwide stage? Harry very well, and rightly so, could be kicked out of the USA, and it makes me think, is that her game plan? If you think about it, he gets kicked out of the USA. There's no way Meghan is going to come back to the UK. She's now got all of the trappings. She's got everything that she could want. She's got security. She's got the money. She's in California. I don't know how it will work, the fact that Harry is a member of the royal family and what sort of visa he's on. But California law, it's not going to go in Harry's favour. Plus on Oprah, and now this book, he's revealed that he's unstable, that he didn't support his wife, that he didn't get his wife medical help when she needed it, that he is completely unstable when it comes to his mother, that he's had lots of medical interventions, that he takes drugs, alcohol abuse. He has literally signed his divorce papers and, more importantly, custody papers for the children. I know this sounds really sinister, but I'm sorry, I cannot see that she could love him to allow him to do this. I have also thought that I cannot see how she truly loves him to have allowed this huge argument to have taken Harry away from every member of his family. Someone that loves you will do absolutely anything and everything to try and make things better for you, not worse. And as for Harry, he has made the situation far worse for himself. And there is absolutely one quote here that I think is truly perfect, and it's actually by a US president. It is better to remain silent and be thought a fool than to speak and to remove all doubt. Yes, Abraham Lincoln, ladies and gents, and never has it been a more pertinent situation as is Prince Harry. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will be back with you very soon where I'm actually going to take a breather from Harry and let's talk about the other royals. More importantly, the Princess of Wales, who has celebrated another birthday, which her brother-in-law has yet again managed to tarnish. Let's just hope, and I'm sure she did, have a wonderful celebration with her family, with her friends, and with her children, and with her very lovely husband. So a belated happy birthday to the Princess of Wales, and I will see you guys soon. Bye.
If you would like to buy me a coffee, please go to my About page and click the link. Love, Taz.